everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for Town Meeting 101. I do want to apologize for anyone who is attempting to join live. I know that the Zoom reminders have been saying a 7 o'clock start time, but we moved the program to 6 to accommodate the Board of Selectmen meeting tonight, where they'll be discussing next week's special town meeting warrants. My name is Robert Hayes. I'm the Community Outreach Librarian and Head of Technical Services here at the Tewksbury Public Library. Thank you so much for joining us. For those joining live, you'll receive an email from me tomorrow morning with a link to a feedback survey. Please fill that out. Let us know what you thought of tonight's event and what you'd like to see for future events. Also, please note that we are recording tonight's presentation, and I will include a link to the recording in that email as well. And Denise and I cannot see you, we cannot hear you, we're in Zoom webinar mode. So if you want to communicate with us live tonight, you're going to want to type your questions into the Q&A box and type your comments into the chat, and we'll address all comments and questions at the end of the presentation. So let me introduce Denise. And before I introduce Denise, I did want to let folks know that we will be joined a little late by I guess we'll say acting town moderator, Scott Wilson. Mr. Wilson has been involved in Tewksbury government for well over a decade now. Former selectman, former school committee member, former finance committee chair, and he's sort of the acting town moderator at the moment. And so he will be jumping on the call when he has a chance. But it is my pleasure tonight to introduce Denise Graffeo. Denise has served as Tewksbury's town clerk for the past 10 years, since 2011. Prior to that, she served as a secretary in the town clerk's office and then worked her way up to assistant town clerk. And believe it or not, I'm not sure if this is the record or not, Denise, but Denise has not missed a town meeting or special town meeting here in Tewksbury since 2004. So that in and of itself is quite the accomplishment. And a little bit about tonight's program, Town Meeting 101, how does town meeting work? Tewksbury has over 22,000 voters, but only 200 to 300 typically attend town meeting, where so many important decisions affecting residents are made. Have you never been to town meeting, or maybe it's just been a while? So we're going to be joined by Denise tonight for a Zoom discussion on how town meeting works. Denise will also answer your questions to help you feel more prepared to attend future town meetings, including the special town meeting scheduled for Tuesday, October 5th at 7 o'clock at Tewksbury Memorial High School. I want to thank Tewksbury Telemedia for helping us out tonight, and of course want to thank the Tewksbury Town Clerk's Office. So all of us watching live and those that are watching on demand, let's give a big virtual round of applause to Denise for joining us here tonight. And Denise, you can take it away. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Robert. I am, as Robert introduced me, Denise Graffeo. I am the town clerk here in Tewksbury, and I would like to thank you for joining us this evening. I'm going to go over a brief synopsis of town meeting, and at the end, we're going to take questions. I also wanted to let everybody know that my office is an open door, so always, if you ever have any questions or need information, not just about town meeting, but anything, feel free to either send an email or contact us. Before I jump into that, I also would like to point out our website as a great source of information. I do have a page specifically related to town meeting on the town clerk webpage, and that you can go and visit that, and there's frequently asked questions and a guide to town meeting. But I know it can be intimidating to go to town meeting if you've never been to one before. So that's what we're going to prepare you for tonight. Some of you may have been to town meetings in the past, and some of you might be brand new. So it's pretty basic information that I'm going to be giving, but feel free if you want more details to ask at the end, or always reach out. Also, we will be talking about the special town meeting coming up next week on October 5th. And the warrant is for that meeting is posted on the town website. I'd also talk, before I jump into it, a little bit about, we have an automatic alert notification system linked to our website. So I think that's a great tool to help people stay connected to the town. You can sign up to receive alerts when the town meeting warrant is posted, for example. You can sign up for alerts for when a certain agenda for a certain committee, any news and announcements. So it's really a great tool for those that want to stay connected. So with that being said, I'm going to jump right into, I have a PowerPoint set up, as you can see on the screen. And a little brief beginning about what is town meeting. Open town meeting is the legislative body of the town of Tewksbury, where voters gather to speak their minds, weigh the pros and cons of policy, and directly participate in the governing of our town. All registered voters are eligible to participate in an open town meeting, as opposed to some towns have a representative town meeting, which they elect representatives to attend town meetings. Tewksbury is different in the fact that we have an open town meeting. So any registered voter is allowed to attend and participate in town meeting. Okay, so this is the largest town meeting that we've ever had. Previous moderator Jane Wellman sent this over. She had included it in her presentation last year. And so we have 23,629 registered voters as of the last day to register for this town meeting. So you can see here, I think that it was close to 3,000 attendees for this town meeting. And the picture itself actually gives me a little anxiety because it's quite a feat to get everybody into the hall and take a vote and with that number of people. But it also makes me extremely happy that many people came in to participate. And I believe it was the question was regarding a casino, rezoning of a piece of land in North Tewksbury for they were proposing to build a slot parlor casino there. And so the great number of people came out to be heard. The question the article ended up failing, which you probably know that if you know that there's not a casino in the northern part of town. Okay, so Tewksbury's annual town meeting begins on the first Monday in May at 7:30 p.m. and it's divided into 3 sections. So this is part of our town bylaw that regulates the dates of these town meetings. Section 1 of the annual town meeting is actually the annual town election. And that's accomplished in April. It's always the first Saturday in April. We have our annual town election of elected committee members. And so the only time that would change would be if Easter Sunday falls on the first Sunday in April, and then it would go to the second Saturday in April. So section 2 of the annual town meeting is really the meat of the meeting. So Article 2 consists of, we vote on elected official salaries. Article 3, we vote on the consent calendar, which is basic articles that generally are non-controversial. Article 4 is always the town budget. And then following the budget article, there are budget related articles, usually transfers and things like that. Any personnel bylaws come after that. And then any town bylaws, general bylaws. So we have general bylaws and we have zoning bylaws. So the general bylaws are, any articles related to general bylaws are in section 2, which is usually the Monday night of town meeting. And then any general articles or petitioned articles we'll get a little bit more into petitioned articles on a further future slide. So the other thing that we need to know about that section 2 is that 11 o'clock p.m. is the latest that that section can go. So we can't begin discussion on any articles after 11 p.m. If we're in the middle of discussion on an article, then we can finalize that. And then we would need to adjourn based on our town bylaws. And then we would reconvene on Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. And we would hear any section 2 articles that we didn't get to on the Monday night. And then we'd go directly into section 3 articles. Section 3 articles are just amending any zoning bylaws. So that's usually the Wednesday night of the town meeting is then we get to section 3 and any zoning articles. Special town meetings are called by the Board of Selectmen. So annual town meetings are set by bylaw. And special town meetings are called by the Board of Selectmen. So the selectmen can call a special town meeting at any time or by a petition of registered voters. So I believe it's 200 registered voters that would submit a petition to the Board of Selectmen, and that would mandate them to call a special town meeting. Traditionally in Tewksbury, the Board of Selectmen call for a spring special town meeting, which is on the first Wednesday in May at 7 o'clock p.m. and a fall special town meeting, which is the one coming up next week, which is traditionally called on the first Tuesday in October at 7 p.m. Okay, the warrant. So the warrant is a key piece of the town meeting. And basically it is important because this is the public notice that tells everybody in the town what types of things we're going to be voting on at town meeting. It's posted and issued in accordance with both Mass General laws as well as our town bylaws. And so the warrant consists of a series of articles, and those are generally numbered. They're always numbered, I should say. And the article provides a description of what we're going to be voting on. So it basically asks the town to vote on, and it will, give a description of what it is that you're trying to accomplish with that article. So the articles get put on the warrant by the Board of Selectmen. So articles are submitted to the Board of Selectmen in a number of ways. Town departments often submit articles. Elected boards are able to vote and submit articles, or by voter petitions. So the voters can petition and submit a petition with the wording of the article, asking the town to vote on a particular matter, as well as an executive summary also needs to be included, kind of a brief synopsis of what the article is asking us to do. And for the annual town meeting, only 10 signatures of registered voters is needed for insertion on the annual town meeting warrant. On any of the special town meeting warrants, it's 100 signatures, 100, we generally tell petitioners to get more than 10 or more than 100, just because sometimes people think that they're registered to vote at a certain address and they might not be. Maybe they moved within town, or maybe they just moved into town and they're not registered to vote, or maybe they changed their name and didn't change that with their voter registration. So we go through a process to be sure that the people that are signing the petition are registered voters in the town of Tewksbury, and you need to have at least 10 for annual or 100 for special. So 2 weeks before a town meeting, a warrant will be sent to your home. It's also posted on the town website, and the warrant includes the date of the finance committee hearing and the date and place of the meeting itself and time on the cover of the meeting of the warrant. The finance committee meets ahead of time. They just met last Wednesday, I believe, and they vote on the articles, whether or not to recommend them or not. Most times, if it's a financial article, that's really the role of the Finance Committee, is to advise town meeting with their recommendations on financial articles. The key participants of town meeting, well, the quorum. The quorum consists of the voters. And so the number of voters set by our town bylaw to be required to convene business at town meeting is 0. That is set by bylaw. There are other communities that have a certain number of voters that need to be present in order to take any action at town meeting. But in Tewksbury, and this is other communities also have, some have 0 as a quorum as well. And so really we could have a town meeting with the moderator and the town clerk present here in Tewksbury. There are issues sometimes in other communities that I hear about where sometimes people will leave the town meeting, and while it's in the middle of it, and then they question the quorum, they might not be able to continue on with the town meeting until more voters come back and become present. But we don't have that issue in Tewksbury because of that 0 quorum. So another key participant is the moderator. The moderator conducts the meeting. And under state law, the moderator can regulate all proceedings. They decide all questions of order, and they make public all decisions on votes. And that's set by Mass General Law. The town clerk serves as the clerk of the meeting and creates an official record of the proceedings. So that has to include all motions and all votes that get recorded and become part of official record of the town. After I create the minutes, I post them online on that page that I spoke about earlier. And it also gets posted in the annual town report. All town meeting minutes are in the annual town report. So that's a report that is that comes out every year. And so again, those are the official records of the town. So any particular vote in any town meeting, we can look back and find the record of why and when that vote happened. The town manager is also a key participant in town meeting. The town manager is the chief administrative officer. He appoints department heads, other employees. He prepares the budget, awards contracts, negotiates with unions, and oversees administration. Board of Selectmen are also key participants in the town meeting. Along with the town manager, the 5-member Board of Selectmen is the executive government. As the town's chief elected officials, the selectmen take an active role and present various articles. They also make recommendations to town meeting. So at 7 p.m., the Board of Selectmen tonight will be taking up the articles of the special town meeting in October and making recommendations to town meeting. Finance Committee, again, the Finance Committee is responsible for making recommendations on any money-related articles and for related reports and recommendations to town meeting. Oftentimes, if it's not a financial article, they may defer to another board. For example, if it's a zoning change, they might defer to that. Or if it's a petitioned article, they would sometimes defer to the petitioner to make the main motion. And also other boards and committees. So all of the elected boards and committees have part in town meeting. As I said earlier, they're able to submit warrant articles as well. And they generally, sit at the head of town meeting and will get up if called upon to answer any questions that voters or attendees might have. Okay, the process. Okay, so the motion is the main action taken by a town meeting, and the article describes the topic to be addressed. The moderator will announce each article and ask for a motion, which is within the scope of the article, which means it has to be relevant to the wording of the article. The term motion also refers to procedural actions that the town meeting might take. Common motions that you would hear at town meeting. The main motion, again, customarily by the Finance Committee, unless it's a zoning bylaw, in which case the chair of the planning board often makes the main motion. Sponsors or petitioner articles may also, of petitioned articles may also make the main motion. An example to that would be, I motion to adopt Article 1. Another common motion is a motion to amend. So a motion to amend requires the amendment to be submitted in writing to the town clerk. So before you go to town meeting, if you are planning to make an amendment to an article, note that it needs to be put in writing and handed to me at town meeting. And then the moderator will read it out loud to the assembly to ask for any discussion. And then they'll take a vote on the amendment before they take a vote on the article. A motion for indefinite postponement. This is a little bit of a confusing article, a confusing motion, but the moderator will, before they take a motion for indefinite postponement, usually explain to the assembly what's happening. So indefinite postponement is a negative motion with the intent to defeat the article. So the moderator will announce, this is a vote on indefinite postponement. If you wish to defeat the article, vote yes for indefinite postponement. If you wish to take a vote on the article, vote no. So the motion for indefinite postponement, if it fails, then the assembly votes on the article. Another motion would be moving the question. And so that means a voter could stand and say, I move the question. And usually that ends all debate, except for anybody that's standing at the microphone. The moderator usually lets them speak, but nobody else can get up to speak on it. It's normally when it starts getting repetitive, the debate starts getting repetitive, and the person feels that it's time to take a vote on the article. The moderator will then take a vote on the motion to move the question. So the assembly will still get the opportunity. If they don't want to end discussion on it, they could vote no, and then the discussion would continue. Okay, the debate. This is the nitty-gritty of what happens at town meeting. So following the motion, it starts with a motion. For example, I motion to adopt Article 1. Then the moderator will ask, is there any discussion on Article 1? At that point, anybody that would like to discuss Article 1 can stand up and go to the microphone and be heard, and speak about only information germane to the scope of the article. So if the article is about getting the grass cut, and you start talking, I'm looking outside, which is how I came up with that motion, and you start talking about I don't know, Robert, what's something that we could be talking about instead of the grass cut?
Library books.
Yes, you start talking about library books, then the moderator will say that's out of the scope of the article. So you can't discuss that at this town meeting, that's why the warrant is so important, because if you start talking about library books And that library books is something really important to me. And when I didn't see library books on the warrant, I didn't go to town meeting. And then you vote on something that was really important to me without me knowing that, that's the whole intent of having the warrant posted and really the whole process of town meeting. So the speaker will be at the microphone. They're in a line, so they would take turns, and the speaker would be recognized by the moderator, and the speaker would need to state their name and address, and then be heard. The moderator, if a question is asked, the moderator may recognize a respondent. For example, the town manager might come up to explain a budget-related article, a finance-related article. And if deemed appropriate, speakers must be recognized by the moderator. There's no open conversation in town meetings. All conversation goes through the moderator. In Tewksbury, voters have a limited time of 5 minutes to speak. Normally the moderator will start making some sort of indication that your time is almost up. Sometimes like tapping on the table just to kind of let you know that it's time to wrap up. And while voters may speak on a motion more than once, no one will be recognized to speak a second time on any one issue until everyone who wants to speak has had an opportunity to address the motion. So you want to try to avoid repetitive or redundant comments. So once debate is concluded or a motion is passed to end debate, the moderator will generally call for a voice vote. So the moderator will say, all in favor of Article 1, say aye. And anybody that's in favor will say aye. Anybody opposed, say no. They would say no. So the moderator gets to decide based on what they hear, whether or not the article is adopted. If the outcome cannot be determined with a voice vote, a standing count will be conducted. It's up to the moderator to select the method of voting. Some articles require more than a majority vote. So a voice vote doesn't work, and the moderator would have a standing count. And so the moderator would say, all in favor of Article 1, please stand. Then we have counters or tellers that will go around and count the voters that are standing. The voters are issued ribbons when they walk into town meeting indicating that they're registered voters. So it's important that the ribbon is displayed in a way that the counters can see your ribbon. And as they go and count, once they get you sit down and they go on to the next voter. And then the moderator would do the negative, all opposed to Article 1, please stand. And then, the outcome would be determined on the actual numbers of people standing as opposed to the voice. After voting by any method, the moderator will declare the outcome, as I stated. Any 7 voters may challenge the moderator's call of the vote. Such a challenge must be made immediately after the moderator declares the outcome. The challenger shall stand and call out, I question the vote, or I doubt the vote. And the moderator will ask whether 6 additional voters also wish to challenge the declared outcome. If so, a standing count will be taken. The guidelines for town meeting are usually printed either on the warrant, or the town manager has a supplemental handout. And it's important to note that, like I just stated, the voters and visitors must display their ribbons. Visitors sit in a designated area. So if you're not a registered voter in the town of Tewksbury, you're still allowed to come to town meeting. You would just be in a separate area. And that is so that when we're counting, we know that we don't count that area. Also, they're not allowed to vote even with a voice vote. So if they're all in one area, they wouldn't be able to be in the middle of the crowd voting without anybody knowing. Standing at the doors or in the aisles are prohibited. Basically, everybody needs to be in a seat. So when it comes time to vote, we can do that efficiently and fairly. Nobody enters the meeting while voting is in progress. Again, for the counting of the vote. Collecting signatures on petitions or nomination papers is prohibited in the high school building while town meeting is in session. That can happen outside of the building. It just can't happen inside of the building. No food or beverages in the gym or auditorium. No smoking on school property. Anyone recording the meeting must sit at the press table. And cell phones must be turned off or switched to silent so that they don't disrupt the meeting. As I've mentioned it before, but special town meeting, as a reminder, is October 5th at 7 p.m. at the high school. And to end, the traditional New England town meeting is the embodiment of grassroots democracy. Annual and special town meetings in Tewksbury provide voters with clear, direct access to their municipal government and the highest level of citizen participation. I hope to see you there. And I'll open this up to any questions.
Great, thank you so much, Denise. So we already have a few questions in the chat, and I would encourage folks listening live to type some more into the chat or the Q&A. We can go for at least 5 to 10 more minutes. Wendy asks, is it unusual for the quorum of a town meeting to be 0?
No, there are probably quite a few that have a 0 quorum.
And then Jean's also interested in this concept of a 0 quorum. She says if 0 voters show up to town meeting, can articles still pass? Would they get voted on by the key participants?
Yes, it would be the town clerk and the moderator. We wouldn't be able to have a town meeting without the town clerk and the moderator.
Wendy asks, if a motion for indefinite postponement passes, can the issue or article be raised at a later meeting?
Yes.
Go ahead, sorry.
So there are a few intricacies as far as that goes, and I think it depends on if it received a negative recommendation from the planning board. I don't have all of the details in my head about that, but in general, yes, it can come up again.
And this is a dangerous thing to do, but prior to the program, we did solicit some questions through social media. So bear with me a second. So someone was wondering what protocols are in place regarding COVID-19 for the special town meeting next Tuesday.
Oh, that's a good question. So I do have a town meeting COVID-19 plan, which is on the town website. I actually have it right here. But it's 3 pages in length, so I don't want to read the whole thing right now. We are going to highly recommend that masks be worn to town meeting. We are going to be using spatial distancing at town meeting. All staff are required to wear masks. We're going to be sanitizing the areas, the gymnasium, all of the highly touched areas before and after town meeting. There's going to be hand sanitizer in areas as well. That's kind of the general gist of it. We'll have directional and spatial arrows so that it limits people walking by each other. We've had 5 town meetings since the beginning of COVID, and so they're basically the same protocols that we've had in place for all of those. even during the state of emergency.
I wouldn't quite call them questions, but we got several comments on social media about the fact that, well, not a lot of folks go to town meeting. And I was wondering if you had any theories as to why that's the case. Well, why, unless there's a hot button issue like a casino or maybe the construction of a new school, why do so many residents tend to skip a town meeting?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer to that question. I raised my family here in Tewksbury, and there'll be times that in these, like I said, I haven't missed one since 2004. And I would say to, on the soccer field to other parents, oh, are you guys going to town meeting tomorrow? And is there anything important on it? Well, there's lots of important things on it, but I guess, I don't know the answer to that.
Sure. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but several comments that said things along the lines of, not everyone works 9 to 5. For me, these meetings at night are always in the middle of my work shift, so I'm never able to go. Similar comments between parenthood, work shifts, and transportation difficulties. There were a lot of reasons why people cannot attend. And just curious if the town has ever considered maybe instead of doing 2 weeknight meetings, maybe attempting to do 1 weekend meeting on a Saturday. I know there's a few towns nearby that do something like that. And any consideration about changing the day and the time of the meetings?
So the dates and times of our annual town election and our annual town meeting are set by bylaw. And as you know, we just talked about bylaws are voted on at town meeting. So I think that there's been discussion. So our election is on a Saturday. Our annual town election is on a Saturday. And then we have our annual town meeting on a Monday night and a Wednesday night. Anybody could submit an article to town meeting with a petition to change that. I'm sure that there has been discussion about what may work best, but I think that everybody has a different opinion on that, and town meeting.
Sorry to interrupt, Denise. This is the last negative question, I promise. But someone feels that maybe town meeting is antiquated now. In the year 2021 with a community of 23,000 voters. Any thoughts on the sort of long-term future for small town meetings in large growing communities?
So other options would be like a representative town meeting where we would elect our town meeting members to represent us. And there's an argument on the other side that people sometimes call it the purest form of government, and everybody has the opportunity to get there and vote on that. So there's two different arguments, and everybody has opinions on that. I think that we had a charter committee years ago. I think maybe about 10 years ago that talked about changing the form of government and not having open town meeting. And that's another one of the highest voted, highest attended town meetings that we had, and town meeting voted against that article by a large majority. So I don't know what the palette is for a change like that at this point in time. But I mean, it certainly warrants discussion. It's a rather large, like I said, the largest legislative body around with over 23,000 registered voters right now.
We'll take a few more questions, Denise. Wendy is curious about remote participation. Can people participate via Zoom? And I would just add to that, could people vote online or vote via text or anything along those lines?
No, there's no absentee voting. There's no remote voting. It's just you have to be present in order to vote.
Follow-up question. I'm unclear about representative town meeting. Aren't selectmen the residents' representatives?
So representative town meeting is there could still be a board of selectmen. It's just the legislative body is not an open town meeting where every registered voter votes at town meeting. The town votes on representatives to attend. So, for example, there's 300 representative seats, and that at the annual town election, voters go out and vote on, people run for those seats, and voters go out and vote whether or not they want those people to be the ones to attend. Every registered voter can't attend a town meeting that is a representative form of town meeting.
And Wendy, I think if you're looking for a real life example, Bill Ricka next door does representative town meeting. Let me see here. I think we're winding down for questions as we approach 6:45. So let me ask you this, Denise. If somebody only had a couple of hours to prepare for town meeting, to do research, what would you suggest they do? How do they spend those couple of hours? I imagine they want to read the warrant booklet. Anything beyond that?
I would suggest definitely reading the warrant. So leading up to town meeting, I also suggest attending the planning board meeting, the finance committee public hearing, the board of selectmen meeting, and then you can get a really good idea other than just reading the warrant. People will stand and have discussion at those meetings, as well as our elected boards will vote themselves whether or not to recommend it. I also, again, point out that website, the town meeting page of our website that has a guide to town meetings and frequently asked questions. And it's not very difficult, long reading. And if it was my first time at town meeting, I would definitely recommend taking a peek at that as well.
Excellent, wonderful. I did put a link to your website and a link to the town meeting guide in the chat. And I'll make sure to include those links in the email that I send out to all the registrants tomorrow. So Denise, do you have any last words before we wrap up for the evening?
I would just like to thank everybody for attending and for your questions. And once again, let you know that I'm always available if anybody wants to just come by and say hi and chat, not only just for questions on town meeting, but other town related business as well. So again, thank you for your interest, and I hope to see you all at town meeting next week.
Great. Thank you so much, Denise, and thank you to Jean and Wendy and Patty and Ronald and everyone else who submitted a comment or a question, including those who did so via social media in advance of the program. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Denise. Good luck tonight and good luck next Tuesday. And I hope everyone enjoys the rest of their evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you. You too.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.